And really the struggle for the light rail system is how are we going to deal with all this growth? And this chart, this slide represents that growth. And up at the top you see kind of our land use, population, and job projections. And as you can see, the Bay Area is going to grow by 27% in terms of population. In Santa Clara County, about 35%. In jobs, we're at 56% versus 52%. So Santa Clara County is going to outpace the rest of the Bay Area in growth for the next 30 years. This is the Association of Bay Area Governments forecast, and these are sort of the adopted forecasts for the region as well as the state and the federal government. A lot of people find these numbers to be unbelievable. And I'll talk a little bit how we kind of temper these forecasts, but part of what we're doing is these are the accepted forecasts of the region as well as the country. And it's true that if you go back 30 years from that, in the past, we did grow at around these rates. So it's not unprecedented. We did actually grow pretty significantly. But what this means in terms of ridership on the light rail system is the chart on the bottom. And as you can see that in 2015, we're projecting about a 58% ridership. And then in 2035, if we didn't do anything to the system, we didn't build BART, we didn't extend the system, we're talking about a 200% increase in ridership, up to over 100,000. And you add BART on there, and it's another 10,000 riders. You add the light rail extensions, that's another 5,000. So as we get into the future, we're really trying to deal with a system that's going to have a lot more riders, triple the ridership that it does today. And can the system, the way it's constructed today, handle that ridership? That's a big question of what we're trying to address. This just kind of graphically represents this. I don't, you can't see that, it's so small, but those dark bars, dark blue, that's the ridership today for every station. The light blue is the 2035 ridership. So what you can see here is by station, some stations are just exploding in terms of ridership. And they're not necessarily the stations that have high ridership today. That big area of Midtown Manhattan there with all those skyscrapers, that's all North 1st Street. That's Orchard and River Oaks and Carina. Stations that are relatively sleepy today are projected to be huge in the future. That's because the city of San Jose has a very aggressive land use plan on North 1st Street where they're really looking for sort of a second downtown in that North 1st Street corridor. I talked a little bit about the long-term forecast and how big it is. This is our market analysis, and I know some of you probably followed us a little bit on our bus COA, and you know that we did kind of a traveler survey of the general travel market in Santa Clara County. What this is really the short-term market. So what is the market for transit in the next 5 years, maybe 7 or 8? So it's really got a short-term horizon. It's based on a couple of things. It's based on congestion levels projected in the near-term future, land use, and then also people's attitudes about taking transit and the travel patterns that they do. The way to read this map is that the darker tones, the dark greens, the dark browns, those are the areas that are proven to be competitive for transit, where transit can compete with the automobile. The lighter tones, those yellows and whites, those are the areas where transit, no matter what it can do, is just not going to compete that well. This helped us design the bus system. This helped us define a core area. It's the same thing is true for light rail. And what's kind of most prominent about this that we'd like to point out is there's that whole area of North 1st and Tasman West you see that's not in that core competitive area. And that's really part of the heart of our light rail system. And that really is part of the explanation as why we're not achieving the ridership levels that we should.
What is a purple snake?
That purple snake is really defining what the core area is. And so a lot of it is, yeah, so that is, a lot of it is intuitive. I mean, obviously downtown, east side San Jose, transit does very well there. Corridors, El Camino corridor up to this area, Stevens Creek, Milpitas to downtown. And then we have a little bit of outliers in Almaden, Santa Teresa area, San Jose. So that's really the core. That's where really most of the transit travel and potential transit travel in the county takes place. Yes?
I was just reading some of the history of light rail in the South Bay. I noted that one original light rail proposal was to run light rail from the east side over to the airport instead of having it run along North 1st Street to Tasman West. Was it true that you would have gotten even close to the expected light rail ridership if you had actually, the original system actually served places where people most likely to go, the airport, and linked them to where transit currently is most heavily used in the South Bay, that is on East San Jose?
Maybe. I mean, it's hard for me to sort of say, go back into history and say, oh, maybe we should have done that, should have done this. I do think that obviously the east side is not well linked up to downtown and destinations by rail today. I mean, that's for sure. I would say that in terms of the airport, there's always the tendency to think that the airport is a big generator of transit, and it hasn't been to date. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be in the future. But we'll get to that. I mean, let me go through this and we can answer it.
I'll go to that question.
Okay. In terms of some of what we're seeing with that market analysis, we did kind of some extra level of work where we looked at the light rail system, how the light rail system and how it's positioned for future market growth. These sort of dark bars kind of represent some travel patterns that are taking place in Santa Clara County today. Not just transit, not light rail, but all travel patterns. And how those travel patterns can actually be, some things are just not attracted to light rail. If you're going from Palo Alto to Cupertino, you're not going to take light rail. So there's things like that we took out of all of our work. And we said, well, what are the trips that people are making where they could take light rail? It's reasonable to assume they're taking light rail, but there may be a barrier. It could be that the system's too slow. It could be that we force people to transfer. It could be that the schedule doesn't work. And so these kind of represent that. And you can see that like the Almaden branch, and pay attention to that because it comes up later. Almaden and Almaden Valley is a strong market for transit. Could be a strong market for light rail. Today we run a shuttle that really just goes 2 stations back and forth, and it forces people to transfer. So we're maybe not capturing as much of that market as we should if we had another alignment there. And we have some ideas about that. We'll see. So in terms of some of the, there's capacity constraints with the light rail system. I mean, everybody who rides light rail experiences the same thing. There's many sort of annoying things about the light rail system that slows down, that really bothers people who ride. And here's some of the reasons why. I mean, we have single track segments in key parts of the system. So on the Vasona line, the Winchester branch, it's almost all single track except for one section of it. Up here in Mountain View, we have another single track section. Those trains all link together, and so if any disruption that occurs in the system has a tendency to disrupt the whole system, the whole schedule of the system, and you've been on the system where you've been held at one station for apparently no reason, what's happening is the whole system is recovering from a disruption. We don't have a lot of flexibility built into the system because we have these single track sections. So that really causes that problem and slows everything down. We have at-grade intersections all over the system, but particularly on North First right now, it's a particular problem. It's particularly acute. Trains are being held for long periods of time. Signals were recently retimed there, and they haven't really recovered to really allow transit the benefit that it needs. The transit mall operates at 10 miles per hour, and 10 miles per hour is the slowest of any transit system in North America. So that really slows down the system, especially because all trains go through the transit mall downtown. Those merge points, they occur at the top of the system over at Tasman. They occur downtown. Trains have to sequence in the proper way, east to west, and from downtown and Vasona. And if that gets disrupted at all, you have a schedule problem. So these are some inherent